been like the primary complaint, I think, about reasonable, rational people when it comes to children and transgender surgeries. I think it's been that we really don't know the long-term implications of them. They haven't been around long enough. They haven't been studied long enough to really understand, okay, how many of these youth that get some sort of surgery to alter their gender regret it later in life? What are the negative implications of it? What are the side effects of it? And people who have dared to say that in recent years are vilified. They are absolutely outright vilified for suggesting the very reasonable step of saying, hey, maybe there needs to be more study done. Maybe the medical world needs to look at these things a little more closely before we allow children to do something that might alter the course of their life in a negative way. So here you have people who are being outright vilified for it. And now what is the American Academy of Pediatrics saying? Well, now they're saying, hey, maybe we have to study this a little bit more. Well, you don't say. So here's the article from the New York Times. Medical group backs youth gender treatments, but calls for research review. It says the American Academy of Pediatrics renewed its support of gender care for minors while commissioning a fresh look at the evidence. And it goes into this, and again, so the New York Times starts by, from the position of, they're saying, yes, we back these gender-related treatments for children, reaffirming a position that it took in 2018. But it goes on to say, the influential group of doctors also took an extra step of commissioning a systematic review of medical research on the treatments, following similar efforts in Europe that found uncertain evidence for their effectiveness in adolescents. You're telling me that's an extra step? Shouldn't that be like the first step before a group of doctors that is incredibly influential in the care of kids across our country tells parents that, oh yeah, we support these sorts of surgeries for youth and for adolescents, and now the group is saying it's taking the extra step of commissioning a systematic review of the medical research? Why are you not doing a systematic review before you sign off and put the weight of your expertise behind something like that? It's really crazy stuff. The New York Times goes on to say critics across the political spectrum, including a small but vocal group of pediatricians, have been calling for a closer look at the evidence in recent years, particularly as the number of adolescents who identify as transgender has rapidly increased. The treatments are relatively new, and few studies have tracked their long-term effects. You don't say. Health bodies in England and Sweden have limited access to the treatments after carrying out systematic reviews, the gold standard for evaluating medical research. This is such common sense stuff. And I liken it in a way to kind of the COVID vaccine, how a lot of the pushback early on was just like, hey, this thing was pushed through pretty quick. And maybe we ought to do a little more studying on it before you not only suggest that Americans take it, but you say that you're going to lose your job if you don't take it, which was the case for many, many people. And so now you have something, again, that the American Academy of Pediatrics in 2018 said, yes, we sign off on these potentially life-saving surgeries for kids to change their gender. And now 5 years later, they're like, but, maybe it needs to be studied more. Maybe we need to really look at this like England and Sweden have done, because when England and Sweden took a closer look at this, they've kind of scaled back where they stand on this issue. It's really crazy stuff. And again, yesterday's conspiracy is today's mainstream news. And so people who've been vilified over and over for suggesting this very thing, do you think the American Academy of Pediatrics, the New York Times is going to say, hey, maybe those people were vilified too quickly for expressing a really common sense opinion that we ought to have more medical research? I wouldn't hold your breath.